Here's a part that I must say out loud. Many black men contributed to the destruction. Not all black men, not most black men, but enough black men. Some black men made choices that harmed our own community. They sold poison in the black neighborhoods. They recruited younger boys into the trade, escalating violence, participating in shootouts and retaliation, prioritizing fast money over community stability, fed the addiction epidemic. We cannot pretend that every man caught up in the system was just a victim. We must acknowledge that some men caused damage from the inside.
Frank Lucas was an incredible street-dealing boss.
Mr. Untouchable, Leroy Nicky Barnes, whose photo on the cover of the magazine caused genuine anger of U.S. President Jimmy Carter. And I must say, the anger is well-deserved, because what president wants to see on the cover of the New York Times one of the main drug lords of the country, who has about 3,000 dealers bringing him millions of dollars?
Both forces broke our families. The system destroyed the foundation. Some brothers knocked down the walls from the inside. And black women and children lived through the fallout.
There was another warning about cocaine today.
Crack now has spread to almost every American city.
It is a problem in Houston, Philadelphia, Kansas City, Tucson, and Sacramento.
In the 1980s, the media sounded the alarm that a new drug, crack cocaine, was taking over American cities and that it had an especially devastating effect on pregnant women and their newborns.
A new study says that babies born to women who use cocaine during pregnancy are 3 times as likely to be born with birth defects.
They tend to be what we call jittery.
They're very, very high risk for cerebral palsy, mental retardation.
These children, who are the most expensive babies ever born in America, are going to overwhelm every social service delivery system that they come in contact with throughout the rest of their lives.
Drugs take away the dream from every child's heart and replace it with a nightmare.
This is the accountability piece that we cannot ignore, black men, because if we ask black women to face uncomfortable truths as well, we must do the same. Here's where balance and honesty matter, because 2 things are true at the same time. Number 1, the government targeted black communities on purpose. Crack versus powder sentencing.
I don't know if this illustration will be effective or not. First, this is flour, and this is an indication of the amount of powder cocaine that would result in the sentencing for this weighted amount of crack cocaine, 100 to 1. 18 to 1, I'm sorry, 18 to 1, which is an indication that if there's no science between the difference, the sentencing is dramatically different. I think that is the simple, direct point we're trying to make at this hearing.
Mandatory minimums.
Why does the U.S. jail more people than any other country? One reason, mandatory minimums. These were introduced in the 1980s and apply to low-level crimes. Mandatory minimums mean convicted people have to serve a minimum sentence, whether or not a judge thinks they deserve it. For example, drug crimes involving crack, heroin, or marijuana trigger minimum sentences. So do crimes involving firearms, pornography, and immigration. But opponents say the punishment doesn't always fit the crime. Take the story of Kemba Smith, an unemployed woman who moved in with her drug dealer boyfriend. After he was murdered, she was charged with conspiracy to traffic all the drugs he left behind. Mandatory minimum sentence, 24 years. In another case, John Horner, a 46-year-old fast food worker with prescription painkillers, met a friend who wanted some of his pills. The friend turned out to be an undercover agent. Conviction for drug trafficking, 25-year minimum. At 25, Timothy Tyler got caught selling LSD with his dad. Because he had been caught selling twice before, the mandatory sentence, life. Since mandatory minimums were imposed, there's been a 500% increase in the incarcerated population at a cost of $80 billion to run the prison system.
Over-policing.
How can police reform stop disproportionate arrest rates? Imagine living in a neighborhood where police are everywhere, and most stops target certain groups. That's often how over-policing in communities of color happens. When police focus heavily on these areas, it leads to more arrests for minor issues.
Take a look at New York City. Here, black people are being arrested and stopped at almost twice the rate as the average New Yorker. Now, if you went over to Tulsa, Oklahoma, being black means you are 2.7 times more likely to be subjected to physical force by police officers than white people. Now zoom out, and the story nationally doesn't change. For example, data shows that across the US, police officers stop black drivers at higher rates than white drivers. This is often called over-policing. It happens when communities either face a large police presence in their daily lives or face aggressive policing for minor offenses and sometimes for nothing at all.
Disproportionate arrests and systems designed to incarcerate black men.
Mass incarceration means that we've got a very high rate of incarceration historically, comparatively. And the other thing is the rate of incarceration is so high, so socially concentrated, that we're no longer incarcerating the individual, but we're incarcerating whole social groups. The rate of incarceration now is about 5 times higher than it was historically. Historically, it was 100 per 100,000. Now it's about 500 per 100,000. If we look at prison, if we add jail to that, it's about 700 per 100,000. Nowhere in the world incarcerates as much as we do. We've seen extremely high rates of exposure to the criminal justice system for African American men with very low levels of schooling. So if we think about black men who were born in the late 1970s and who are growing up through the American prison boom of the 1980s and the 1990s, the chances that they're going to serve time in state or federal prison if they dropped out of high school is about 70%. So going to prison for that group of black men with very low levels of schooling, that's become a normal life event. And that's really only happened in the last 10 years.
This was real, this was intentional, and this was structural violence.